The war was over, stood in line with thousands of other soldiers, waiting for his discharge papers. The demobilization station floated in orbit above Earth, a massive structure of metal and glass. Through the windows, he could see his home planet below, blue and green and peaceful. It looked nothing like the burning worlds he had seen during the war. Was 32 years old. His body carried scars from battles he wanted to forget. His mind carried worse things. All he wanted was to go home to his family's farm in Provence, to feel soil under his boots instead of the cold floors of warships. He wanted to sleep without dreaming of fire and death. The line moved slowly. Soldiers talked in quiet voices around him but stayed silent. He had nothing to say. The Galactic War had taken 3 years of his life and pieces of his soul. Now it was finished, and he just wanted to disappear into the mountains of Korea and never think about aliens again. When his turn came, he stepped up to the processing desk. A tired-looking officer typed his information into a terminal. Everything seemed normal until the officer frowned at the screen. "Sergeant," the officer asked. "Yes. There's a special assignment attached to your file." Felt his stomach drop. "I'm being discharged. My service is complete." "This isn't military duty." The officer looked uncomfortable. "It's a reparation assignment. According to the Treaty of Cygnus, you've been selected to receive a subject." Stared at him. "What?" "A war reparation. The defeated coalition agreed to provide workers as part of the peace settlement. You've been assigned one." The farm was smaller than had expected. A simple house with a sloped roof sat at the edge of green fields. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks hidden by morning mist. The air smelled of earth and growing things, so different from the dry winds of her dead. Stood in the doorway when they arrived. She was 26, with strong arms and sharp eyes. 3 years of running the farm alone had made her tough. When she saw her brother walking up the path, her face broke into a wide smile. Then she saw, and the smile disappeared. "Brother," she said carefully, "who is this?" Set down his bag. "It's a long story. Can we go inside?" In the kitchen, over cups of tea that did not touch explained the situation. The treaty, the reparation assignment, the impossibility of refusing. Listened without interrupting, her face growing harder with each word. "So she's a slave," said when he finished. "The government calls them integration subjects." "That's a fancy word for slave." Looked at for the first time. The alien woman sat perfectly still, her glow dim, her eyes fixed on the table. "Does she understand Korean?" "I understand," said quietly. "All integration subjects receive language training before assignment." His eyebrows rose. "And what exactly are you supposed to do here?" "Whatever is required of me." "We're farmers. We barely have enough for 2 people. What are we supposed to do with an alien who probably doesn't know the difference between rice and wheat?" "I can learn," said. "I am not afraid of work." Held up his hand before his sister could respond. "Let's figure this out tomorrow. It's been a long journey. Everyone needs rest." He showed to a small room at the back of the house. It had been used for storage, but there was a bed and a window that looked out at the fields. Stood in the doorway, uncertain. "This is for me?" she asked. "It's not much. On the transport ship, I slept in a cargo container with 40 others." Her voice was flat, stating a fact. "This is more than I expected." She stepped inside and closed the door. Stood in the hallway for a long moment, that sick feeling returning to his stomach. The first weeks were difficult. Tried to help with every task, but she made mistakes. She came from a desert world where water was precious and plants were rare. Here on Earth, everything was backwards. One morning, found an entire section of young rice plants drowned in water. Had woken before dawn and tried to help with irrigation. More water always meant better growth. She had not understood that too much water could kill just as easily as too little. Shouted at her in frustration. stood in the flooded field, mud up to her knees, her glow flickering rapidly with distress. She did not make excuses. She did not cry. She simply waited for punishment. But the punishment never came. Walked out to the field, assessed the damage, and sighed heavily. Then he sat down on the edge of the irrigation channel and patted the ground next to him. "Sit," he said. Sat, keeping distance between them. "On, you had to fight for every drop of water, right?" "Yes, water was life. The more you had, the better. Here it's different. Earth has plenty of water. Too much can drown the roots, make them rot. Plants need balance." He picked up a handful of wet soil and let it fall through his fingers. Farming isn't about giving plants everything. It's about giving them what they need when they need it. Does that make sense? Nodded slowly. No one had ever explained things to her this way. Since being captured, she had only received orders, not lessons. "Can the plants be saved?" she asked. "Some of them will drain the field and see what survives." He stood up and offered her his hand. "Come on, I'll show you how." They worked together through the morning, redirecting water, checking roots, saving what could be saved. Watched from a distance, her anger slowly fatting into something more complicated. That evening, approached while she was washing mud from her feet outside the house. "I'm sorry I yelled," said stiffly. She was not good at apologies. "You didn't know." "I should have asked before acting." "Yes, you should have," paused, "but you work hard, I can see that." It was not exactly warmth, but it was something. A small crack in the wall between them. The days passed. Learned about earth seasons, about the patience required to grow things, about the rhythm of farm life. She was a quick student, and her natural precision, trained during years as a medical worker, served her well in the careful work of planting and harvesting. Bay, the farmer from the neighboring property, visited one afternoon. He was sage, with a round face and easy smile. He had been curious about the rumors spreading through the village. "So it's true," he said, looking at with open fascination. "You really have one." "She has a name," said. Tried the word. "Strange name. Is it okay if I talk to her?" Looked at. "Do you want to talk to him?" The question surprised her. No one had ever asked what she wanted before. Yes, I can talk to him." Asked her questions about her world, her people, her life before the war. He was not hostile, just curious in the way of someone who had never traveled beyond his own valley. Answered carefully at first, then more freely as she realized he meant no harm. "Your skin really glows," said with wonder. "Can you control it?" "Somewhat. It reflects our emotional state. Bright when we are happy or excited, dim when we are afraid or sad." Glanced at her current glow, which was soft but steady. "What does that mean?" Considered. "I think it means I am calm or becoming calm." After left, made dinner. For the first time, she set out 3 bowls instead of 2. It was a small gesture, but understood its meaning. Said suddenly, "What?" "It's a Korean name. It means to shine." Did not look up from her cooking. "If you're going to live here, you should have a proper name for the village. Will make people ask too many questions." Now felt her glow brighten despite herself. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow I'm teaching you how to harvest vegetables without crushing them. Your technique is terrible." But there was no real criticism in her voice. Something had shifted between them, small but real. That night, a government inspector arrived. He was a thin man with cold eyes and a tablet full of forms. He checked identification, examined her living conditions, and asked questions about her treatment. "She seems well cared for," he said too. "Some veterans are not so generous with their subjects." "She's a person, not a subject." The inspector smiled without warmth. "Legally, she is exactly a subject. Don't forget that, Sergeant. The treaty has specific requirements. If we determine that a subject is being treated inappropriately, too harshly or too leniently, there can be consequences." "What does too leniently mean?" These subjects are here to work and integrate, not to be coddled. Some people have strange ideas about treating them as equals. The Galactic Council considers that improper management. The inspector made a note on his tablet. I'll return in 3 months for another inspection. Make sure everything is in order. He left without saying goodbye, stood in the doorway, watching his vehicle disappear down the road. Behind him, stood in the shadows, her glow dim with fear once again. What happens if they think you're treating me too well? She asked. Turn to face her. Then we'll deal with that when it comes. Get some rest. Tomorrow there's a lot of work. He walked past her to his room, leaving the question unanswered. But had seen the anger in his eyes, and for the first time, she wondered if this human might be someone worth trusting. Autumn came to the mountains, painting the trees in shades of red and gold. The harvest kept everyone busy from sunrise to sunset. Worked alongside the now, her movements more confident, her understanding of earth farming growing each day. Her glow had stabilized into a soft, steady light that no longer flickered with constant fear. But at night the farm was not peaceful. His room was next to's. The walls were thin. She could hear him when the nightmares came, the sudden movements, the sharp breaths, sometimes words in a language she did not recognize. The sounds of a man fighting battles that had ended months ago but still lived inside his head. Were sensitive to emotional energy. Her people believed that feelings had weight, that strong emotions left traces in the air like ripples in water. Since arriving at the farm, had felt pain every night. It washed over her like waves of cold water, dark and heavy. One night the nightmare was worse than usual. Heard a crash, then silence. She waited, but no sound of movement followed. Concern pulled her from her bed before she could think better of it. She found him outside, sitting on the ground behind the house. The moon was full, casting silver light over the fields. Sat with his back against the wall, breathing hard, staring at nothing. He had knocked over a stack of tools on his way out. He did not seem to notice her approach. She said softly. He flinched, his hand moving instinctively toward a weapon that was not there. Then recognition entered his eyes, and his body relaxed slightly. You should be sleeping, he said. I heard you fall. I'm fine. They both knew it was a lie, hesitated, then sat down a few feet away from him. The night air was cold, but her natural bioluminescence generated enough warmth to keep her comfortable. You don't have to stay, said. I know. They sat in silence for a long moment. Above them, stars filled the sky, the same stars that had seen from very different worlds during the war. On, she said finally, we believed that the night was when spirits walked. We would tell stories to keep them company, so they would not feel lonely. Almost smiled. Are you offering to tell me a story? If you want, or you could tell me one. I don't have any good stories. Then tell me a bad one. He was quiet for so long that thought he would not respond. Then he began to speak, his voice low and rough. There was a battle on a moon called 7. We were sent to take a communication base. The fighting it was bad. We lost half our squad in the first hour. He paused, gathering himself. Near the end, when we were clearing the last buildings, a soldier came out of a doorway. He was young. He had his hands up. He was surrendering. Felt the weight of what was coming. Her glow dimmed involuntarily. I shot him anyway. I didn't think. I just reacted. 3 years of training and fighting, and my body just did what it had learned to do. His voice cracked. He looked surprised, like he couldn't believe I would do that when he was giving up, and then he was dead. That was not your fault, said. War makes people. It was my fault. I pulled the trigger. No one made me do it. Finally looked at her. His eyes were red, but no tears fell. I think about him every night. I don't even know his name. I just know that he wanted to live, and I took that from him. Thought about her own experiences during the war. The wounded soldiers she had treated on both sides. The ones she could not save. The ones who died holding her hand, their glow fading slowly until there was nothing left. "I was a healer before the war," she said. "When our empire joined the coalition, they forced all medical workers to serve. I was assigned to a military hospital near the front lines. I treated soldiers, human prisoners, anyone they brought to me." She wrapped her arms around herself. "There was a human prisoner once, a pilot. His ship had been shot down. He was badly burned, in great pain. The commanders wanted him to survive so they could interrogate him." "What happened?" "I healed his burns, I stabilized him, I did my job perfectly." Her glow flickered with old grief. "Then they took him away for questioning. I heard his screams for 3 days. When they brought him back, there was nothing left to heal. He died in my hands." She looked at directly. "I saved him so they could torture him. Is that not also a kind of killing?" Had no answer. They sat together in the cold night, two people carrying the same weight from opposite sides of a war. "My people believe something," said eventually. "When you take a life, you absorb part of that person's light. It becomes part of you, not as a curse but as a responsibility." She paused. "You carry that soldier's light now. The only way to honor it is to live well, to be the kind of person who deserves to carry it." "What if I'm not that kind of person?" "Then you try to become one. That is all any of us can do." The moon moved across the sky. The night grew colder. Neither of them moved to go inside. "Told me you used to paint," said, "before the war." Seemed surprised by the change in subject. "That was a long time ago." "Do you still have your paints?" "Somewhere. I haven't touched them in years." "Perhaps you should try again. My people believe that creation can heal what destruction has broken. Making something beautiful is a way of adding light to the world." "That sounds like something from a children's story." "Children are very wise." This time did smile, small but real. "Maybe I'll look for those paints." When they finally went back inside, something had changed between them. The distance that had existed since arrival, the careful separation between master and subject, had grown smaller. They were not equals, not yet, but they were no longer strangers. In the morning, noticed the change. She saw how looked at over breakfast, how no longer kept her eyes constantly downcast. She did not ask questions, but she stored the observation away. Visited that afternoon with news from the village. His face was troubled. "There's talk on the networks," he said. "A group called Pure Terra. They're spreading in the cities, anti-alien extremists." "There have always been people like that," said. "This is different. They're organized. They have money. They've been attacking aliens and the humans who help them. There was a fire in Seoul last week, a family that was hosting a subject. The house burned down. The government says it was an accident, but everyone knows." His expression hardened. "Have they been seen around here?" "Not yet, but some people in the village have been sharing their messages. They're finding support." Looked at who had gone very still. "If anyone comes here causing trouble," he said quietly, "they'll regret it." "That's what I'm afraid of," replied. "You've always been too willing to fight. These people are not soldiers. They're something worse. They believe they're righteous." After left, the farm seemed quieter than before. The golden autumn light felt less warm. Somewhere beyond the mountains, something dark was growing, and it was only a matter of time before it found its way to their door. That night found his old painting supplies in a storage box. The brushes were stiff, the paints mostly dried out, but a few tubes still held color. He sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at a blank piece of paper. Finally, he began to paint. The image that emerged was abstract, swirls of silver and blue light against a dark background, like stars being born or dying, like a glow in the darkness of space. When saw it the next morning, she stopped in the doorway, her own glow brightening with surprise and emotion. "It's beautiful," she said. "It's a beginning," replied, "just a beginning." The first sign of trouble came on a cold morning in late autumn. Went out to check the storage barn and found the walls covered in red paint. Words dripped down the wood like wounds. alien lovers and TRAITORS and other things too ugly to repeat. A symbol was painted on the door, a circle with a slash through it, the mark of pure terror. She called for. He stood in front of the barn for a long time, his jaw tight, his hands clenched into fists. Stayed back, her glow so dim she was barely visible in the morning light. "I should leave," said quietly. "If I go, they will leave you alone." "No," said without turning around. "But—" I said no. He finally looked at her. "This is your home now. You don't run from your home." They spent the morning cleaning the paint from the barn walls. Came to help when he heard what happened. His face was pale and angry. "I told you this was coming," he said. "Someone in the village must have told them about." "Do you know who?" "There are a few people. Old Son has been spreading pure terror videos. The widow hand complained about having an alien in the village." Shook his head. "These are people we grew up with. I don't understand how they can be so full of hate." "Fear makes people cruel," said. She wrung out a paint-soaked cloth with violent force. "They lost family in the war. They need someone to blame." "Didn't start the war," said. "They don't care about truth. They care about feeling powerful." Threw the cloth into a bucket. "We should report this to the authorities." They made a report, but the local police officer seemed uninterested. He took notes, made sympathetic noises, and explained that vandalism was a minor crime with little chance of catching the perpetrators. His eyes kept sliding toward with an expression that suggested he thought she was the real problem. Days passed. Nothing else happened. Began to hope it had been an isolated incident, a one-time message from cowards who would not return, but was not so optimistic. She started keeping a metal pipe by the front door. The second attack came a week later. Someone had dumped poison in the irrigation channel during the night. By the time they discovered it, a quarter of their winter vegetables were dead. Months of work destroyed in hours. Raged, helped them redirect water from a clean source and save what could be saved. Filed another report that went nowhere. "They're trying to starve us out," said that night over dinner. "They know we depend on these crops. If they destroy enough, we'll have to sell the farm." "We're not selling," said. "Then we need to fight back." "How? We don't even know who they are." Set down her chopsticks. Her glow pulsed slowly, thoughtfully. "Violence will only bring more violence," she said. "I have seen this on many worlds. It never ends well." "Easy for you to say," snapped, then immediately looked guilty. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean that." "You meant it," said without anger. "You're scared and angry. That's natural. But attacking them will only prove their point, that aliens and those who help them are dangerous. We have to show them something different." "Show them what?" "Our burned fields. Our dignity, our refusal to become like them." The third attack came 3 nights later, and it was not vandalism. Woke to the smell of smoke. He ran outside and saw flames rising from the storage barn, real flames this time, eating through the wooden walls where they kept the season's harvest. Everything they needed to survive the winter was inside. "Fire!" he shouted. His sister burst from the house with a bucket, followed moments later. They formed a chain, passing water from the well, but it was not enough. The fire spread too fast. Then saw them, 5 figures standing at the edge of the field, watching. They wore dark clothes and face coverings. One of them held an empty container that had probably held fuel. Even in the darkness, their satisfaction was visible. Something broke inside. All the control he had maintained since coming home, all the careful restraint, burned away like the barn itself. He grabbed a shovel and ran toward them. "No!" screamed. He didn't hear her. All he saw were the people who had terrorized his family, destroyed their livelihood, threatened everything he loved. All his war training surged back, filling his muscles with deadly purpose. The Pure Terra members had expected scared farmers. They had not expected a combat veteran charging at them with murder in his eyes. 4 of them scattered immediately, running into the darkness. but one was too slow, caught him and knocked him to the ground, raising the shovel like a weapon. "Please," the man whimpered, "please don't." His arms shook. The man below him was young, maybe 20, with a thin face and terrified eyes. Just a boy. A hateful, stupid boy who had helped burn down a barn, but still just a boy. The shovel hung in the air. Thought of another young face, the soldier on 7, hands raised in surrender. He had not hesitated then. One moment of blind reaction and a life ended. He would not make that mistake again. Lowered the shovel. "Get out," he said, his voice shaking. "Tell your friends if they come back I won't stop next time." The boy scrambled away into the night. When returned to the barn, he found something unexpected. Stood between the fire and the building, her skin blazing with light. Not the soft glow he had grown used to, but brilliant, blinding luminescence that hurt to look at directly. He remembered, could emit this light when threatened, a defense mechanism from their evolution on a world full of predators. The light was so bright that the remaining Pure Terra members couldn't approach. Had used the time to organize neighbors who had seen the flames, and 3 other farmers formed a proper bucket line, fighting the fire from the other side. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the authorities. By the time the fire was controlled, half the barn was gone, but half remained. More importantly, no one was hurt. Collapsed after dimming her light, exhausted from the effort. Carried her to the house while dealt with the police officers who finally seemed to take the attacks seriously. Later, after the police had taken statements and the neighbors had gone home, sat beside bed. She was weak but awake, her glow barely visible. "You could have run," he said. "In the confusion, no one would have stopped you." "I know. Why did you stay?" Was quiet for a moment. "Because this is the first place I have been seen as more than what I am useful for. You treat me like a person, not a tool. Your sister gave me a name, asks my opinions. These are small things to you, but to me." She closed her eyes. "This is home now. I would not abandon my home." Felt tears prick at his eyes for the first time since the war. He took his hand, a gesture that would have seemed impossible just months ago. "Then we'll protect it together," he said. In the morning, went to the local government office. He filed a formal declaration stating that was under his protection not as a reparation subject, but as a member of his household. The official who processed the paperwork looked at him strangely. "This has no legal standing," the man said. "She's still classified as a subject under the treaty." "I know, I'm making a statement anyway." "A statement to whom?" Looked at him steadily. "To anyone who's watching." Word spread through the village. Some people approved, others were angry, but everyone understood that the family had drawn a line. They would not be driven out, and they would not give up the alien they had come to call family. The Pure Terra attacks stopped after that night. Perhaps they feared real consequences now that the police were involved. Perhaps they had moved on to easier targets. Whatever the reason, the farm was quiet again. But everyone knew it was not over. The hatred that had burned their barn still existed somewhere, waiting for another chance. The only question was whether things would change before it returned. Then one evening, a message arrived that changed everything. The Galactic Council had announced a new program. Reparation subjects could apply for integration status after 1 year, becoming legal residents with full rights. The application required testimony from their assigned humans. Read the message 3 times to make sure he understood. Then he went afind. 1 year, he said. It's been almost a year since you arrived. His glow brightened with hope she was afraid to feel. They would really let me become free. If we can convince them, if I speak for you. He smiled for the first time in days. I think we have a good case to make. Spring arrived slowly, warming the frozen ground and coaxing green shoots from the earth. 1 year had passed since brought home from the demobilization station. The farm had survived winter, though barely. The half-destroyed barn had been rebuilt with help from neighbors. The lost crops had been replaced by careful planning and extra work. Now a different kind of test awaited them. The integration hearing was scheduled for March in a government building in Seoul. Spent weeks preparing documentation, records of contributions to the farm, statements from neighbors, evidence of the community she had become part of. Helped him organize everything, her practical nature turning chaos into order. "You should write something personal," she told him one night. "The official documents show what she's done. You need to show who she is." Struggled with the personal statement for days. How could he explain what meant to them? How could he put into words the way she had become part of their family, not through law or obligation, but through shared work, shared pain, and shared hope? In the end, he wrote simply, "She is one of us. She has proven it with her actions. All she asks is the chance to belong officially to a world she already belongs to in her heart." The day of the hearing, they took the early train to Seoul, wore simple human clothes, a blue dress that had helped her choose. Her glow was controlled but visible, a soft silver that drew curious looks from other passengers. She kept her head high, no longer ashamed of being seen. Had traveled with them to testify. Several other villagers had sent written statements, including some who had initially opposed presence. Even Old Sun, who had once shared Pure Terra videos, had written a brief note saying that the alien was not as bad as he had expected. The hearing room was cold and formal. A panel of 3 officials sat behind a long table. Other integration cases waited in the hallway, humans and aliens paired together, all hopping for the same thing. Presented his documentation first. He answered questions about behavior, her work, her adjustment to life on Earth. The officials seemed satisfied but not impressed. This was routine for them, one more case in a long line of cases. Then spoke, her voice was steady and strong. "When my brother first brought home, I was angry. We had barely enough for ourselves. I didn't want an alien in my house eating our food, taking up space." She paused. "I was wrong. Works harder than anyone I know. She learned our ways, respected our customs, and never complained. When our barn was attacked, she risked her life to help save it. That's not the action of a subject or a slave. That's the action of family." Followed with his own statement. He talked about curiosity, her kindness, the way she had won over skeptical villagers through patience and dignity. "I have known since we were children," he said. "I have never seen him happier than in this past year, not because he gained a servant, but because he gained a friend." The lead official wrote notes without visible emotion. "Thank you for your testimonies. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?" A commotion arose at the back of the room. A man in an expensive suit pushed forward, waving documents. "I object to this proceeding." Recognized the type immediately. Sharp eyes, righteous anger, the confident bearing of someone who believed he was saving the world. A Pure Terra representative. "The council must hear from those who oppose this dangerous policy," the man declared. "Integration is a threat to human purity. These aliens fought against us in the war. They killed our soldiers, destroyed our colonies. Giving them rights rewards their aggression." The lead official looked tired. "Sir, this is an individual case assessment, not a policy debate." "Every case is a policy debate. Every alien who receives integration status is a step toward the destruction of human identity." The man pointed at. "This creature may seem harmless now, but her people were our enemies. They can never be trusted." Sat very still. Her glow had dimmed, but she did not look away from the man attacking her. The official sighed. "You have made your objection. It will be noted. Now." "I have not finished. I demand the right to." "You do not have the right to demand anything. Please return to your seat or security will remove you." The man continued arguing, but guards escorted him out. The disruption left an uncomfortable tension in the room. "In light of the objection," the lead official said, "we will give the subject herself a chance to speak. This is not required, but given the circumstances, it seems appropriate. Do you wish to address the panel?" Rose slowly. Her glow brightened as she gathered herself, watched her with pride and fear in equal measure. "I am not good with words," she began. "I was a healer, not a speaker, but I will try." She turned to face the panel directly. "The man who just spoke is right about one thing. My people were your enemies in the war. We fought against you. We killed your soldiers. This is true, and I will not deny it." Murmurs rippled through the room, felt his stomach tighten. "But I did not make the war," continued. "I did not choose it. My empire forced my people to fight just as your governments forced your people. We were all tools of powers that did not care if we lived or died. The soldiers I treated, human and alike, all bled the same color in the end. All cried for their mothers. All wanted to go home." Her glow pulsed with emotion. "I do not ask you to forgive what happened. Forgiveness is not something that can be demanded. I only ask for a chance to build something new. In 1 year I have learned to love this world, its green mountains, its changing seasons, its people who work hard and care for each other. I have learned that humans are not monsters, even though we were told you were. I have learned that kindness exists, even in the ruins of hate." She looked at then. "These people gave me that chance. They saw me as a person when the law said I was property. They welcomed me into their home when others wanted me destroyed. If that is what humanity means, choosing compassion when cruelty would be easier, then I want to be part of it. I want to belong to a world where such people exist." She sat down. The room was silent. The lead official removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. When he spoke, his voice was less formal than before. "Thank you. The panel will deliberate and announce our decision shortly." The wait seemed endless. Held's hand under the table, sat rigid with tension, tried to make small talk but gave up after a few sentences. Finally, the officials returned. "The panel has reviewed all testimony and documentation," the lead official announced. "We find that the subject known as also called has demonstrated successful integration into human society. Her contributions are documented, and her character has been attested to by multiple witnesses." He paused, looking directly at. "Therefore, by the authority of the Galactic Council Integration Program, we approve her application for residential status. As of today, she is no longer a reparation subject. She is a legal resident of Earth, with all associated rights and protections." His glow blazed bright, so bright that people nearby had to shield their eyes, pulled her into an embrace without thinking, was crying, though she would deny it later, cheered loud enough to earn a stern look from security. They were still celebrating when they left the building. The streets of Seoul were busy with afternoon traffic, humans and various aliens going about their lives. The war had changed everything, but life continued. It always did. On the train home, sat by the window, watching the city give way to countryside. Her glow had settled into something new, not dim with fear or bright with momentary joy, but warm and steady in content. What called the light of belonging. "What will you do now?" asked. "You're free, you could go anywhere, do anything." Considered the question. Outside, green fields rolled past, dotted with farmhouses much like the one she had learned to call home. "I think," she said slowly, "I would like to stay where I am. There is still much to learn about earth farming, and promised to teach me how to make kimchi properly." "That's all, freedom to make kimchi." Smiled, a human expression she had learned to make. "Freedom is not about where you go, it is about choosing to be where you belong." Leaned back in his seat, thinking about what she said. He had spent years fighting a war about territory, about resources, about power. None of that had made him free. What had freed him was something much smaller. A quiet farm, a rebuilt barn, a family that had grown to include someone unexpected. "Is a harsh teacher," he warned. "Her kimchi lessons are like military training." "I survived the Galactic War. I think I can survive your sister." They both laughed, and the sound was easy and natural, the laughter of people who had found peace after a long journey. Back at the farm, spring was in full bloom. New crops pushed up through the soil. The rebuilt barn stood solid and ready for the seasons ahead. Mountains rose in the distance, ancient and unchanged by the small dramas of the beings who lived in their shadow. That evening they sat on the porch together, Anne, who had invited himself to dinner. They ate food grown from their own fields and talked about ordinary things, weather forecasts, planting schedules, village gossip, the kind of conversation that happens everywhere, on every world among people who share their lives. When the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, its glow reflected the colors beautifully. She belonged here now, not by conquest or obligation, but by choice and love. The war had brought her to this place, but peace had made it home. Watched her laugh at something said, and he felt something he had almost forgotten existed. Not just peace or contentment, but hope. Hope that the universe could become better than it was. Hope that enemies could become family. Hope that humanity, true humanity, the kind that existed in actions rather than biology, could spread to every world that was willing to receive it. It was a small hope, perhaps. One farm, one family, one alien who had found her place. But all great changes began with small things. Seeds became forests. Ripples became waves. And sometimes, a single act of kindness could light a fire that burned brighter than hate. The stars came out, familiar patterns that both humans and had navigated for generations. Somewhere among them, other stories were being written, other wars being fought, other pieces being made. The universe was vast and often cruel. But here, on this small farm in the mountains of Korea, there was warmth and light and belonging. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was home. I didn't ask for this. It's not optional, Sergeant. The treaty requires human veterans to integrate these subjects into society. Refusing would be considered a diplomatic insult. It could create problems. Wanted to argue, but he could see from the officer's face that it would be pointless. The decision had been made somewhere far above them both, in rooms where politicians and generals traded lives like currency. He was just another soldier being told what to do. "Where is this subject?" he asked, the word feeling wrong in his mouth. The officer pressed a button, and a door opened on the side of the room. 2 guards walked in, and between them was an alien. Had seen during the war, but always at a distance or through the scope of a weapon. This was the first time he had seen one so close, in a moment that wasn't filled with violence. She was female, tall and thin, with skin that seemed to glow from within. The light was soft, shifting between silver and pale blue. Her eyes were large and dark, like pools of deep water. She wore simple gray clothing, and her hands were bound in front of her. She kept her eyes on the floor. Her glow was dim, barely visible. She looked like a candle about to go out. "This is Subject V7749, the officer said. "Her name is. She was a medical worker during the war, no criminal history. She's been cleared for civilian integration." Did not look up, she did not speak. She stood perfectly still, waiting. Felt sick. 3 years ago, he had gone to war believing he was fighting for freedom and justice. Now here he was, being handed a person like she was a piece of furniture. This was what victory looked like. "Take off the restraints," he said. The guards looked at the officer, who nodded. They removed the bindings from his wrists. She still did not move. Stepped closer to her. She flinched slightly, as if expecting a blow. The small movement made something twist painfully in his chest. "Look at me," he said, trying to make his voice gentle. Slowly she raised her eyes. Up close, he could see the fear in them, carefully hidden but definitely there. She expected cruelty. She was prepared for it. "I don't want a slave," said. "I didn't ask for this. I don't know what to do with you." His expression flickered with confusion. In her experience, such words were usually followed by abandonment or violence. Humans who didn't want subjects often found creative ways to make them suffer before discarding them. "I will serve as required," she said. Her voice was soft and careful. "I will not cause problems." "That's not what I meant," ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I mean, this whole thing is wrong. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't belong to anyone." Did not know how to respond to this. Her people had been conquered. The treaty had been signed. She was property now, according to the laws of both humans and the Galactic Council. What this human soldier thought about it did not change reality. "We should go," said finally. "My transport leaves in an hour." He signed the remaining documents without reading them. He received a data chip containing identification and legal status. Then he walked toward the departure area and followed 2 steps behind him, silent as a shadow. The transport ship was crowded with soldiers going home. Many of them stared at with expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. One man spat on the floor as she passed. Another made a comment about glowing freaks that his friends found funny. Found seats in a quiet corner and sat down. Stood beside him, uncertain. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the seat next to him. She sat, keeping her body small and her glow dim. She stared at her hands in her lap. The ship's engines hummed to life, and soon they were descending through Earth's atmosphere. Watched the clouds pass by the window. Somewhere below was his home, his sister, the life he had been dreaming about for 3 years. Now he was bringing an alien into that life, a living reminder of everything he wanted to forget. He glanced at. She had not moved since sitting down. Her breathing was slow and controlled, like she was trying to take up as little space as possible. "Have you ever seen Earth before?" he asked. "No," she replied. "I have only seen it in images." "It's different from your world." "Yes," was dry, desert and stone. "Earth has much water, much green." She paused. "It is beautiful." Nodded. He didn't know what else to say. The ship broke through the clouds, and below them stretched the mountains and forests of Korea. Rivers wound through valleys like silver ribbons. Small towns dotted the landscape. Somewhere down there was waiting for him. His younger sister had been running the farm alone since their parents died during the war. She didn't know he was bringing a guest. She didn't know their lives were about to become much more complicated. Closed his eyes and tried not to think about the future. One problem at a time. First, get home. Then figure out what to do with the alien woman sitting silently beside him, her dim glow reflecting in the window like a small, sad star.